Discipline isn't motivation. It isn't talent. It's war. Every morning you're in a fight. Against comfort, against laziness, against every excuse your mind invents to protect your weakness. The ruthless win because they act without emotion. They show up when it's boring. They execute when it's painful. This is the formula, a system of mental control that turns ordinary people into relentless machines of progress. This is the Ruthless Discipline Formula. And if you apply it, your future self will never forgive you for waiting this long to start.
Chapter 1. Stop waiting to feel ready. You've been told to wait. Wait until you're confident. Wait until you're prepared. Wait until the timing is right. That's the biggest lie you've ever believed. Readiness is not real. It's comfort in disguise. It's your brain trying to keep you safe from change, from risk, from progress. But the truth is simple. You will never feel ready. You have a choice, right now. Act or delay. Move or freeze. Build or stay the same. Every time you wait for readiness, you're giving up control. You're handing your future to fear. Because readiness is just fear dressed up as logic. That's the key. Fear doesn't disappear when you wait. It grows. It learns your patterns. It learns that if it whispers not yet, you'll obey. You need to break that habit. You need to train yourself to move before you're comfortable. Because that's what discipline is. Not excitement, not confidence, action. Think about how the world actually works. No soldier feels ready for war. No athlete feels ready for the final round. No parent feels ready to raise a child. And yet, they act. They step into the unknown, trembling but committed. That's the model. You act first. Confidence comes later. You don't think your way into courage. You act your way into it. You don't plan your way into progress. You move your way into it. Stop romanticizing readiness. Stop over-preparing. Stop collecting information as a substitute for movement. It's not about perfect plans. It's about disciplined action. You can't build a strong body by reading about push-ups. You can't build a strong mind by waiting to feel strong. You have to act, especially when you don't feel ready. That's the formula. That's the discipline. The people you admire, the ones who look unshakable, decisive, fearless, they're not built differently. They just stopped negotiating with their fear. They stopped waiting for the right time. They decided that hesitation is a form of surrender. They move anyway. They act when they're uncertain. They speak when their voice shakes. They show up when they doubt themselves. That's the difference between success and stagnation. Not readiness, but repetition. You don't need their permission. You don't need validation. You don't need a sign from the universe. You need movement. You need decision. You need discipline. Every time you act before you're ready, you train your brain to trust action. Every time you wait, you train your brain to hesitate. You're programming yourself every day. The question is, are you programming for strength or for stagnation? Let's be honest. Waiting feels smart. It feels responsible. It feels strategic. But most of the time, it's procrastination wearing a suit. You don't need another plan. You need proof. And proof comes from doing. Stop thinking about the next step. Take the next step. Stop asking if it will work. Make it work. Stop waiting for confidence. Earn confidence through repetition. You have to become addicted to movement, addicted to starting, addicted to showing up. That's how you crush hesitation. Not by overthinking, but by overacting. You want to change your life? Stop saying, "I'm not ready." Start saying, "I'll start now and I'll figure it out." That's what every leader, every creator, every fighter has done. When they didn't know how, they learned. When they didn't feel confident, they acted anyway. When they failed, they adapted. That's the process. Action, failure, adjustment. Over and over again. That's the real readiness, resilience, the ability to act, learn, and repeat. The person who acts unready will always beat the person who waits for permission. Always. Because the first person learns through movement. The second person dies in theory. So ask yourself, how many dreams have you delayed because you wanted to feel more confident first? How many chances have you lost because you said, "I'll start when I'm ready"? You don't need to feel ready to take control. You need to take control to feel ready. That's the paradox no one tells you. Readiness follows action. It never comes before it. You build readiness by doing the thing you're afraid of. You earn confidence by surviving it. You master discipline by acting without it. That's the loop. That's the practice. That's the life. So here's what you do. Start before you're ready. Speak before you're comfortable. Commit before you have certainty. Take one step forward, no matter how small, no matter how awkward. Because one step forward destroys the illusion of unreadiness. Do it once, then do it again. Stack action on top of action until movement becomes your default. That's how you transform. Not through hype, but through habit. Not through inspiration, but through instruction. You have to decide that fear is not a stop sign. It's a signal. It's a signal that you're entering new territory. It's a signal that you're growing. You don't avoid that signal, you follow it, because that's where discipline is built. You don't need a map. You need momentum. You don't need readiness. You need resolve. You don't need confidence. You need consistency. That's the core of the Ruthless Discipline Formula. Act, adjust, advance. Every day, no matter how you feel. You have a choice. Stay comfortable and call it patience, or act decisively and call it growth. You already know which one will change your life. Because discipline doesn't wait. Discipline doesn't hesitate. Discipline doesn't negotiate. Discipline acts. Transition. You've stopped waiting. You've learned that readiness is an illusion and movement is your only weapon. But now, you need to understand what replaces motivation once it dies, because it will.
Chapter 2. The Death of Motivation. Motivation dies. That's the truth no one wants to face. It fades. It runs out. It disappears the moment life stops being exciting. And when it's gone, most people stop too. They stop showing up, they stop trying, they stop believing. Because they built their progress on emotion instead of discipline. Motivation is a spark. Discipline is the fire. Motivation makes you feel like starting. Discipline keeps you from quitting. And that's the key. You have a choice. You can keep chasing motivation, or you can train the mind to move without it. You can wait for the mood to be right, or you can decide the mood doesn't matter. Motivation is external. Discipline is internal. Motivation is emotion. Discipline is identity. That's the difference between people who change for a month and people who change for life. Think about the last time you felt unstoppable. Maybe it was a new job, a workout plan, a business idea. At first, You were fired up. You told yourself, this time I'll stick with it. And for a while, you did. But then the feeling faded. You got tired. You got distracted. You got busy. And suddenly, the fire that felt eternal was gone. That's motivation dying. And it always will. Because motivation depends on emotion. And emotion is fragile. You can't trust it. You can't rely on it. You can't build your life around it. That's why discipline is everything. Discipline doesn't care how you feel. Discipline doesn't need hype. Discipline doesn't need an audience. It just acts. The disciplined person does what needs to be done, whether it feels good or not. They wake up when they said they would. They work when it's boring. They execute when no one is watching. They've trained themselves to move without mood. That's what separates the few from the many. Because most people only act when they feel like it. And that's why they never break through. You have to rewire your relationship with effort. You have to see resistance as a signal, not to stop, but to go. When your brain says, I don't feel like it, that's the exact moment you must act. Because that's where the muscle is built, the mental muscle of control. You don't need their permission. You don't need approval. You don't need to feel inspired. You need movement. You need structure. You need ruthless consistency. Motivation is temporary. Discipline is eternal. And here's the secret most people miss. Every act of discipline creates more motivation. You don't start motivated, you start disciplined. And discipline creates motivation through momentum. When you show up once, you feel proud. When you show up twice, you feel capable. When you show up daily, you feel powerful. That's not emotion, that's proof. And proof is stronger than any feeling. The reason most people fail isn't lack of motivation, it's dependence on it. They keep waiting for a burst of energy to start. They keep telling themselves, I'll do it when I'm in the zone. But the zone doesn't come to amateurs. It comes to the disciplined. It comes to the ones who keep moving even when it's hard, even when it's dull, even when it's quiet. You can't summon greatness through feeling. You summon it through repetition. That's the formula. Action before emotion. Movement before motivation. Discipline before desire. Imagine this. You wake up tomorrow and you feel nothing. No drive, no spark, no excitement. Most people would say, I'll skip today. I'll start tomorrow. But the disciplined mind says, perfect, this is the test. They get up anyway. They do the reps anyway. They keep their word, especially when it's hard. Because that's what builds trust with yourself. That's how confidence is born, not from success, but from self-trust. Every time you do what you said you would do, even without motivation, you reinforce your identity. You become the kind of person who follows through. That's the transformation. You go from chasing motivation to becoming momentum. It's not about feeling ready. It's about showing up. It's not about hype. It's about habit. It's not about mood. It's about mastery. That's how you become unstoppable. Not by controlling your emotions, but by outgrowing them. You don't have to kill motivation. You just have to stop worshiping it. You just have to understand that it's the beginning, not the end. When you feel motivated, use it. When you don't, act anyway. That's how you win on both days. Remember this: motivation will leave you. Discipline will stay with you. Motivation speaks loudly. Discipline works quietly. Motivation fades fast. Discipline lasts forever. Every day you act without motivation, you're teaching your mind that action is normal. You're teaching your brain that mood is irrelevant. You're teaching your body to move because it's who you are, not how you feel. That's the mindset of the ruthless. That's how ordinary people become extraordinary. You don't need a reason to begin. You just need a rule. I act no matter what. That's the foundation of this formula. When you kill your dependence on motivation, you finally take control. You stop waiting for permission. You stop waiting for energy. You stop waiting for the right time. You just act. That's discipline. That's freedom. And when the world asks you how you keep going, you'll smile, because you know the truth. You stopped relying on motivation a long time ago. You've buried motivation. You've learned to act without emotion. Now it's time to build something even stronger, the mind that commands your mood instead of serving it. Let's go deeper.
Chapter 3. Train the mind, not the mood. You can't control your moods, but you can control your mind. And that's the difference between people who drift and people who dominate. Your mood is temporary. Your mind is trainable. Your emotions shift by the hour, but your mindset can become unshakable. That's the key. If you only act when your mood allows it, you'll never build anything lasting. Because moods are inconsistent, unpredictable, and emotional. The mind, when trained, becomes reliable, focused, and precise. You have a choice. You can serve your moods, or you can train your mind. You can chase feelings, or you can build control. That's discipline. Your emotions are like weather. They change constantly. You can't stop the rain, but you can carry an umbrella. You can't stop the storm, but you can strengthen your shelter. That shelter is your mind. And if you don't train it, the storm will destroy you every time. You can't rely on motivation to hold the line. You need mental conditioning, daily, deliberate training of thought. Because your thoughts decide everything: your focus, your effort, your direction. Train your mind, and your emotions become background noise. Ignore your mind, and your emotions become your master. Here's the truth. Your mood doesn't care about your goals. It only cares about comfort. It only wants safety. So when you feel lazy, tired, unmotivated, that's not weakness. That's your brain trying to protect you. But protection is not progress. And that's why you have to take control. You train the mind through control. Control through repetition. Repetition through action. That's the sequence. That's the formula. You don't rewire your mind by thinking. You rewire it by doing. Every time you act in defiance of your mood, you send a signal. I'm in charge now. That's how mental toughness is built, not in comfort, but in conflict. Think about how athletes train. They don't wait for perfect energy or perfect weather. They train on bad days to make the good days automatic. You must do the same, but with your mind. You have to train it under pressure. You have to test it under stress. You have to prove to yourself that you can think clearly when your emotions scream for escape. That's strength. That's control. That's the foundation of every disciplined life. Your emotions will always fight for the wheel. Your job is to take it back, over and over again. Start small. When you wake up and don't feel like getting up, get up anyway. When you feel like scrolling, close the app. When you want to quit early, Stay 5 more minutes. That's mental training. It's not dramatic. It's not flashy. It's repetition. You're not training to feel better. You're training to respond better. You're teaching your brain that action comes before emotion. And soon you'll notice something powerful. The moments that used to derail you will no longer move you. The moods that used to control you will barely register because you've built mental armor. That's the goal, not to eliminate emotion, but to override it. You don't need their permission. You don't need validation. You don't need to feel inspired. You need control. And control is built like muscle, through resistance. You can't meditate your way into discipline without testing it in motion. You can't visualize strength without backing it with repetition. Training the mind means doing hard things on purpose. It means creating controlled discomfort, cold showers, long focus sessions, doing the thing you avoid daily. Because every time you do, you're telling your brain, this discomfort doesn't control me. That's freedom. Freedom from the emotional roller coaster. Freedom from hesitation. Freedom from the voice that says, not today. You want peace? Earn it through practice. You want control? Train it through repetition. You want discipline? Build it through discomfort. It's not about mood. It's about mastery. Not about how you feel, but how you respond. That's what separates disciplined people from emotional ones. The ability to keep moving while feeling everything. You're not emotionless. You're focused. You're not numb. You're stable. Because you've trained your mind to lead and your emotions to follow. Remember this. When your mind is strong, your moods become powerless. When your thoughts are disciplined, your emotions become background noise. When your habits are aligned, your feelings no longer decide your life. You can't control when you feel low, but you can control what you do when you're low. You can't control when you feel tired, but you can control what you give your energy to. You can't control the storm, but you can control how steady you stand in it. That's the power of training the mind. You're not reacting, you're commanding. You're not surviving, you're shaping. That's the mindset that changes everything. Train your mind, and your mood will follow. Train your mind, and your fears will shrink. Train your mind, and your discipline will become automatic. You have a choice. You can be the puppet of emotion or the master of mental control. The difference is training. Daily, deliberate, disciplined training. It's not about feeling ready. It's about acting like you already are. That's what this chapter is about. Learning to move first, think later, and train always. Transition. You've learned to train your mind, to act despite emotion, to override the mood, to lead yourself. Now it's time to apply that control when everything inside you wants to stop. You've mastered the theory. Now comes the test.
Chapter 4. Do it bored. Do it tired. Do it anyway. You won't always be excited. You won't always be motivated. You won't always feel like doing the work. But that's when it matters most. That's when discipline is tested. That's when you find out who you really are. Anyone can act when it's fun. Anyone can move when it's easy. But the disciplined, they move when it's dull. They act when they're tired. They show up when no one else does. That's the secret. That's the formula. That's how greatness is built, in the moments that feel small, repetitive, and invisible. Here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Boredom is part of mastery. Fatigue is part of progress. Resistance is part of growth. If you only work when you're inspired, you'll never go far.
Because inspiration fades faster than you think. And when it's gone, the only thing left standing is your discipline. You have a choice. You can treat boredom as a reason to quit, or as proof you're on the right path. Because boredom is the body's signal that you've left the comfort zone and entered the growth zone. That's the key. The dull moments are the doorway to greatness. The world glorifies excitement. Find your passion, they say. Love what you do, they say. But passion is a beginner's fuel. Discipline is the finisher's fire. You don't need to love it every day. You just need to respect it enough to keep showing up. There will be days when your mind says, "Why bother?" Days when your energy is low. Days when nothing feels new. And in those moments, you have one task: execute anyway. Because that's how real confidence is built, not from feeling good, but from doing what you said you would, regardless of mood. Do it bored. Do it tired. Do it anyway. That's not a slogan. That's survival for anyone who wants to win long term. The disciplined don't chase feelings. They chase standards. They follow rules that don't bend with emotion. That's the mindset of consistency. I said I would, so I will. When you train like that, fatigue stops being an obstacle. It becomes a trigger. It reminds you that you're building endurance while others are giving up. And boredom? Boredom becomes your sharpening stone. Because repetition doesn't make you weaker, it makes you automatic. That's the power of discipline. To perform without thinking, without hype, without mood. You don't need their permission. You don't need validation. You don't need to feel like doing it. You need commitment. And commitment is proven in the moments no one sees. The quiet hours, the tired nights, the days that blur together. That's where discipline lives. Not in bursts of effort, but in the grind of consistency. You don't rise to your level of excitement. You fall to your level of discipline. And if your discipline is strong, nothing can stop you. Let me give it to you straight. Boredom is the tax you pay for progress. Fatigue is the toll you pay for transformation. If you can't handle repetition, you'll never handle success. Because success isn't a single moment, it's thousands of ordinary days stacked together. Ordinary days where nothing feels exciting. Ordinary days where you show up anyway. That's what separates winners from talkers. The ability to keep working when no one's clapping. That's where character is built. That's where resilience grows. That's where the average give up and the disciplined rise. The truth is simple. You won't feel like it most of the time, but you don't need to. You just need to act. That's discipline in its purest form. Action without emotion, progress without permission. Every time you do the work when you don't want to, you rewrite your identity. You teach your brain that feelings don't decide your future, choices do. And that's how you become unshakable. There's a phrase I repeat often. Tired doesn't mean done. Because fatigue is not a signal to quit. It's a signal to push. When your mind says stop, that's the edge of your current capacity. Step 1 inch past it and you expand it. Step 1 inch past it every day and you become unstoppable. You train your mind to stop negotiating with weakness. You train your body to obey your mission. That's the mindset of high performers. I do it because it's who I am. Not because it's fun, not because it's easy, but because it's required. Want to build something lasting? Get comfortable being uncomfortable. Want to stay consistent? Stop asking how you feel. Want to win? Do it bored, do it tired, do it anyway. It's not about mood, it's about mission. Not about passion, about persistence. Not about energy, about execution. That's how you separate yourself in a world full of quitters. While they're waiting to feel good, you're already moving. While they're overthinking, you're already done. That's what makes you dangerous. That's what makes you disciplined. So when tomorrow comes and you don't feel like it, smile. Because that's your moment. That's your training ground. That's your test. Do it anyway. Because you can. Because you must. Because every action done without emotion strengthens your will. That's how you build the unbreakable mind. That's how you earn quiet confidence. That's how you live the Ruthless Discipline Formula. One ordinary, exhausting, powerful day at a time. Transition. You've learned to act without motivation, to show up through boredom and fatigue. Now it's time to face the biggest enemy of all, comfort. Because comfort kills more dreams than failure ever will. Let's go deeper.
Chapter 5. Comfort is the enemy. Comfort feels good, but comfort destroys you. It lulls you into softness. It whispers that you've done enough. It tricks you into thinking rest is progress. That's the lie. That's the trap. That's how most people lose. Not through failure, but through comfort. Because comfort doesn't announce itself as danger. It shows up disguised as taking a break. It hides behind self-care. It convinces you that slowing down is the same as being wise. But comfort is not wisdom. Comfort is surrender. You have a choice. You can chase comfort or you can chase growth. But you can't have both. That's the key. Comfort is easy. Growth is hard. Comfort gives you instant relief. Growth gives you lasting pride. One soothes you for a day. The other shapes you for a lifetime. That's the difference between people who stay stuck and people who rise. One group chooses comfort now and pain later. The other chooses pain now and power later. You decide which side you're on. Because the truth is simple. Everything you want, strength, mastery, purpose, lives outside the borders of comfort. Look at anyone you admire. They didn't get there by feeling good. They got there by pushing through what most people run from. They didn't chase comfort. They chased clarity. They chased standards. They chased the version of themselves that only exists on the other side of pain. They understood the formula. The more comfortable you become, the softer you grow. The softer you grow, the weaker your mind becomes. And a weak mind can't carry a strong vision. Here's what comfort really does. It makes you forget what you're capable of. It makes you numb. It makes you slow. It makes you rationalize mediocrity. You start negotiating with yourself. You start saying, "It's fine, I'll do it later." You start believing that being balanced means never being uncomfortable. But balance without challenge is just laziness in disguise. And that's how potential dies, quietly, gradually, comfortably. If you want to change your life, you must build a habit of seeking discomfort. That's right, seek it. Don't just tolerate it. Don't just survive it. Go looking for it. Because discomfort is where discipline grows. Every uncomfortable act sharpens your focus. Every moment of resistance builds your edge. Cold showers, early mornings, long silence, hard conversations.
These aren't punishments, they're practice. You're not torturing yourself, you're tempering yourself. You're building mental armor. You're proving you can survive what used to stop you. That's the real reward of discomfort. Not the result, but the resilience. You don't need their permission to be uncomfortable. You don't need validation to push harder. You just need to remember this. Comfort never built a warrior. Comfort never built focus. Comfort never built greatness. You can't grow inside a bubble of ease. You can't evolve if you never stretch. Growth always costs pain. That's the price. And if you're not paying it daily, you're staying the same. That's why the disciplined don't run from discomfort. They use it. They know that every ounce of unease sharpens their control. Every test of patience strengthens their mindset. Every hard day becomes another layer of mental callus. That's how the unbreakable mind is built. Comfort kills because it hides your decline. You don't notice it right away. You just stop caring as much. You just stop trying as hard. You start demanding more. And then one day you wake up, tired, uninspired, and confused about where your edge went. It didn't vanish. You gave it away, traded it for convenience. You traded your potential for a little extra sleep. You traded your momentum for distraction. You traded your purpose for temporary ease. And now you wonder why you feel restless. Because part of you knows you're meant for more than comfort. The world is addicted to ease. Instant results, instant approval, instant relief. But you're not here for easy. You're here for earned. You're here to build the kind of mind that can stand in chaos and stay calm. The kind of focus that doesn't break when life gets hard. The kind of discipline that thrives under pressure. And you don't get that from comfort. You get that from friction. So stop chasing soft living. Stop protecting yourself from struggle. Let the hard things harden you. That's how you grow. That's how you sharpen. That's how you win. You have to ask yourself one question every day. Am I choosing comfort or am I choosing growth? Because that answer decides your future. Every skipped workout, every ignored goal, every excuse to rest when you haven't earned it, it compounds. And every time you push through when you don't want to, that compounds too. One path builds a habit of quitting. The other builds a habit of conquering. You have a choice, and every choice matters. The disciplined don't seek easy. They seek progress. They know that comfort is temporary, but pride is forever. They know that the pain of effort lasts a moment, but the pain of comfort lasts a lifetime. So choose discomfort, seek it, embrace it, because that's where transformation lives. That's where strength is born. That's where the Ruthless Discipline Formula becomes real, not in theory, but in practice. You've learned that comfort is the silent killer of growth, that every step toward ease is a step away from strength. Now it's time to face another trap, the need for control, for perfection, for certainty. Because the truly disciplined don't wait for perfect conditions. They act through chaos.
Chapter 6. Control the controllables. You can't control everything, but you can control something. And that's where your power lives. Most people waste their energy fighting battles they can't win. Other people's opinions, random circumstances, unexpected problems. But the disciplined know better. They know that control isn't about owning everything. It's about mastering what's yours. That's the difference between chaos and calm. That's the difference between panic and power. That's the difference between living as a victim and living with direction. You have a choice. You can spend your days reacting, or you can spend them executing. You can drown in what's out of reach, or you can dominate what's in your hands. That's the key. Here's a hard truth. Most stress doesn't come from what happens. It comes from how you respond. You can't stop the storm, but you can decide how steady you'll stand in it. You can't control the wind, but you can adjust your sails. That's discipline in action. Because life will never bend to your expectations. It will throw you delays, obstacles, disrespect, and noise. And every time it does, you have one decision to make. Will I focus on what I can control, or waste time on what I can't? That single choice determines your peace, your focus, your progress. You can't control how people treat you, but you can control how you carry yourself. You can't control what happens tomorrow, but you can control how you prepare today. You can't control your emotions when they rise, but you can control whether you act on them. That's power. Quiet, stable, unshakable power. You don't need their approval. You don't need the world to be fair. You just need control over yourself, your thoughts, your actions, your response. That's where greatness starts. The undisciplined person spends all their time blaming. They blame the system, the weather, their past, their boss, their luck. And because they're busy blaming, they never build. The disciplined person doesn't waste a second on excuses. They look at what's broken and say, what can I fix right now? They focus on movement, not misery. They focus on control, not chaos. That's how progress is built, by narrowing your focus to what's truly yours. You can't control the outcome, but you can control the effort. You can't control success, but you can control consistency. You can't control timing, but you can control preparation. That's the mindset of a winner. Winners don't complain when things don't go their way. They adjust, adapt, and keep moving. They play the long game. They understand that focus on the controllables creates stability, and stability creates results. Because consistency always wins in the end. The truth is, control is not about power over the world. It's power over yourself. It's waking up and doing the work even when everything feels uncertain. It's staying calm when everyone else is panicking. It's choosing focus when distraction feels easier. That's how you train emotional control, by mastering your reaction. The disciplined person doesn't ask, why is this happening to me? They ask, how can I use this? That's the shift. From victim to commander. From panic to purpose. You can't control the economy, but you can control your work ethic. You can't control the algorithm, but you can control your consistency. You can't control who supports you, but you can control your standards. That's the formula. Every uncontrollable has a controllable mirror. Every external chaos has an internal choice. And the more you focus on those choices, the stronger your mind becomes. Because control brings clarity, and clarity kills anxiety. Let me give you something to remember. When you stop trying to control everything, you finally start controlling something. That's freedom. That's peace. That's power. You can't manage outcomes, but you can manage your habits. You can't guarantee results, but you can guarantee effort. And if you stay focused on what's in your control long enough, results take care of themselves. That's how the disciplined operate, not by hoping, but by controlling what they can and releasing what they can't. That's mental toughness in its purest form. You have a choice. You can be distracted by the world or devoted to your work. You can obsess over fairness or you can build endurance. You can complain about what's missing or you can maximize what's here. The disciplined choose control. They choose direction. They choose stability. They don't chase chaos. They create calm through action. And that calm becomes their advantage. Because when everyone else is losing focus, the disciplined keep building. When everyone else is complaining, the disciplined keep moving. That's what makes them dangerous. That's what makes them unstoppable. Control the controllables. Master your response. Dominate your habits. Release the rest. That's how you reclaim your power, not by bending the world, but by mastering yourself. It's not about control over everything. It's about control over you. That's the only control that ever truly matters. Transition. You've learned to master what's in your hands and release what's not. But now comes the next evolution of discipline, learning to lead yourself when no one is watching. Because the truest test of control isn't what you do in public, it's what you do in silence.
Chapter 7. The Discipline of Solitude. Most people can't stand being alone. They need noise. They need distraction. They need constant validation to remind themselves they matter. But solitude? Solitude is where the real ones are forged. Because in silence, there's no applause, no attention, no escape. Just you, your thoughts, and your truth. And most people run from that truth. That's why solitude is not punishment, it's purification. It's where you strip away the noise and face the real work, your fears, your patterns, your habits, your lies. You have a choice. You can drown in distraction, or you can use solitude as your weapon. You can chase connection to feel busy, or choose isolation to become focused. That's the key. Solitude teaches you what noise hides. When you're always surrounded by others, you can avoid accountability. You can hide behind opinions, validation, and comparison. But when you're alone, you see yourself clearly. You can't hide from your habits. You can't hide from your excuses. You can't hide from the truth of what you've become. And that's uncomfortable. That's why most people fill every silence with a screen or a scroll. They're not afraid of being alone. They're afraid of meeting themselves. But the disciplined? They crave that meeting, because solitude is their sharpening ground. When you sit in silence, your thoughts get loud, and that's not a bad thing. That's awareness. You start noticing the loops, the complaints, the doubts, the fears. You start seeing how often your energy is wasted on nonsense. And in that awareness, something powerful happens. You begin to take control. Because you can't master what you won't face. You can't improve what you won't see. Solitude is how you see. It's the mirror of discipline. Think about it. Every truly great thinker, creator, or leader in history mastered solitude. They didn't need the crowd. They needed clarity. They withdrew not to escape, but to build. They went silent to hear the signal beneath the noise. That's what solitude does. It sharpens your focus and strengthens your conviction. You start realizing what matters. You start seeing what's just distraction. You start understanding that your peace is more valuable than your popularity. That's mental evolution. That's quiet power. You don't need their permission to be alone. You don't need validation for silence. You don't need to explain why you're disappearing for a while. You're training, you're realigning, you're refining. Because solitude is not isolation, it's elevation. You're not cutting people off, you're cutting distractions out. That's what the world won't understand. They'll call it selfish, they'll call it strange, but that's because they're afraid to be alone with their own reflection. You're not. You've learned that silence is strength, stillness is progress, focus is freedom. Solitude teaches you discipline in its purest form, because there's no audience to impress, no one to watch you do the right thing, no one to applaud your effort. It's just you showing up, keeping promises, and doing what needs to be done when no one will ever know. That's integrity. That's the highest form of discipline. Anyone can perform for the crowd. Few can perform for themselves. And that's the difference between motivation and mastery. Motivation needs witnesses. Mastery needs silence. In solitude, you learn the rhythm of your own mind. You stop reacting to everything external. You start operating from intention. You discover what truly matters to you, not what looks good, not what trends, not what pleases others. You find your values. You find your peace. You find your center. That's why solitude feels uncomfortable at first. It's detox. It's pulling your attention back from 1,000 empty places. It's teaching you to listen to yourself again. And once you find that inner stillness, you become dangerous. Because a calm mind can't be manipulated. A grounded person can't be swayed. That's real control. The undisciplined chase company because they fear silence. The disciplined seek silence because they crave strength. They know solitude isn't empty, it's full of answers. It's full of lessons. It's full of direction. Every time you sit in silence, you're training your focus. Every time you detach, you're reinforcing independence. Every time you choose solitude, you're sharpening your self-control. That's the formula: reflection, refinement, repetition. You have a choice. You can be addicted to noise or committed to stillness. You can seek distraction or seek depth. You can chase attention or build intention. Solitude gives you back your energy. It gives you back your mind. It gives you back yourself. It's not about being alone. It's about being aligned. When you master solitude, you stop fearing silence. You start using it. You start thinking clearly. You start moving with purpose. That's the discipline of solitude. Stillness as strength. So the next time you feel lonely, remember this: you're not alone, you're in training. You're building a foundation no one can see, but everyone will feel. Because the people who can stand alone will always lead the ones who can't. That's your edge. That's your power. That's your peace. Embrace the quiet. Live in it. Train in it. Let it carve away the noise until focus remains. That's how you build a mind that cannot be broken by the crowd. Transition. You've mastered solitude, the ability to be alone, to stay centered, to think clearly in silence. Now it's time to test that inner calm in the world, where chaos, opinions, and temptations surround you. Because the next level of discipline isn't what you do in isolation. It's how you carry that stillness into action.
Chapter 8. Move in silence. Silence is your advantage, because in a loud world, the quiet ones are the most dangerous. The loud ones talk, the quiet ones move. The loud ones announce, the quiet ones execute. And when it's time to deliver, the quiet ones don't need to prove, they just perform. That's the discipline of silence, the art of doing without broadcasting, the strength of staying focused when everyone else is trying to be seen. You have a choice. You can talk about your goals, or you can live them. You can perform for attention, or you can perform for mastery.
but you can't do both. That's the key. Most people can't handle silence because they crave validation. They want to be seen working, not actually work. They want to be known for effort, not committed to it. But the disciplined? They're invisible in the process and undeniable in the result. They understand that progress doesn't need applause, that greatness grows best in private, that real focus thrives away from noise. Because every time you talk too much, you leak energy. Every time you announce your plans, you weaken your drive. You give the world access to something that should have stayed sacred, your effort. Silence is not secrecy. It's strategy. You're not hiding. You're protecting. You're protecting your focus from distraction, your ambition from judgment, your process from interference. When you move in silence, you give yourself room to fail, adjust, and improve without the noise of other people's opinions. That's freedom. Freedom from validation. Freedom from performance. Freedom from pressure. And that freedom is where the best work is born. Think about it. Every master trains in silence. The fighter in the gym before the cameras arrive. The writer staring at a blank page long before anyone reads it. The entrepreneur building quietly when no one believes in them. The public sees the highlight, but the private work, that's where the transformation happens. Silence is not emptiness. It's preparation. It's the forge where skill is sharpened and discipline is refined. And the more you learn to move quietly, the more powerful your actions become. You don't need their permission to be unseen. You don't need validation for the grind. You don't need to prove that you're working. You just need to work. The loud ones need attention to stay consistent. The quiet ones are consistent because that's who they are. The disciplined don't seek recognition, they seek results. They don't post about what they're doing, they finish it. That's what makes them unstoppable. Because the louder you are, the more energy you waste explaining instead of executing. And energy is your most valuable currency. Spend it wisely. Moving in silence is not about hiding. It's about staying aligned. When you stop announcing every move, you stop seeking permission. You stop waiting for approval. You stop asking, "What will they think?" and start saying, "Watch what I do." That's power. Quiet power. Calm confidence. You don't need the world to understand your mission. You just need to stay loyal to it. And that loyalty is proven in silence. In the hours no one records, the work no one notices, the sacrifices no one praises. That's where your edge is built. The undisciplined chase attention. They need to be seen to feel valuable. They confuse visibility with progress. But visibility without results is just noise. It looks busy, but it accomplishes nothing. The disciplined know that the loudest person in the room is usually the weakest. Because when you're truly focused, you don't have time to explain. You don't have time to defend. You're too busy doing the work that speaks for itself. That's the mindset that separates amateurs from professionals. Moving in silence also builds mental strength. When you keep your goals to yourself, you learn self-trust. You learn how to hold a vision without external validation. You learn how to rely on your own standard, not someone else's praise. That's growth. That's maturity. That's self-leadership. Because when you no longer need to be seen, you're finally free to focus entirely on becoming. And when your results show up,
They speak louder than any announcement ever could. You have to understand this. Silence amplifies results. When you stop talking and start executing, your output multiplies. When you stop announcing, you start achieving. When you stop explaining, you start evolving. It's not about secrecy. It's about focus. It's about protecting your momentum from the world's noise. You don't need to prove that you're doing the work. You just need to do the work until it's impossible to ignore. That's how you move differently. That's how you move deliberately. That's how you move in silence. You have a choice. You can chase attention, or you can earn respect. You can talk, or you can transform. You can perform for the crowd, or you can perform for your mission. Choose the mission. Choose the silence. Choose the path of focus. Because silence has no ego. It has no noise. It has no distractions. It's where your discipline grows and your power compounds. You'll notice something when you master this. People will start to wonder how you did it. They'll ask when it happened. They'll be shocked at how far you've come. And all you'll do is smile, because while they were talking, you were training. While they were posting, you were progressing. While they were loud, you were becoming. That's the reward of silence. Not applause, but transformation.
Chapter 9. Eliminate the noise. Noise is the enemy of focus. And today, noise is everywhere. It's in your phone. It's in your thoughts. It's in the endless stream of opinions, distractions, and comparisons that never stop demanding your attention. You can't hear your purpose because you're listening to too much nonsense. You can't build your focus because your mind is constantly hijacked. The truth is simple. The modern world rewards distraction and punishes depth. And that's why eliminating noise has become a discipline, not a convenience. You have a choice. You can stay addicted to distraction, or you can fight for your clarity. You can drown in noise, or you can rise above it. That's the key. Noise steals your life in small, invisible moments. A scroll here. A notification there. A conversation that goes nowhere. And before you know it, your focus, your most valuable currency, is scattered across 100 meaningless places. Every ping, every alert, every bit of gossip is a withdrawal from your potential. And here's the part most people don't understand. Distraction isn't random, it's engineered. You're not weak for struggling to focus. You're surrounded by systems designed to keep you addicted, emotional, and reactive. That's why you must build a system stronger than theirs. A system of discipline, boundaries, and silence. Eliminating noise begins with honesty. Ask yourself, what's taking more than it gives? Who drains your focus? What habits steal your peace? Which inputs shape your emotions without your permission? Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And that's where the real work begins, because elimination requires courage. It means muting what's popular to protect what's powerful. It means saying no to most things so you can say yes to the right ones. It means disconnecting from noise so you can reconnect with purpose. That's discipline. Understand this.
Your attention is your life. Where your focus goes, your energy follows. And where your energy flows, your results grow. So if your attention is scattered, so is your progress. If your focus is fragmented, so is your potential. You don't need more motivation, you need less noise. Because every time you reduce distraction, you increase strength. Every time you simplify, you multiply. It's not about doing more, it's about removing what weakens your focus. That's how you reclaim control. Start with the simple things. Turn off notifications. Schedule your time. Clean your environment. Your space shapes your state. Your inputs shape your output. You can't expect mental clarity in digital chaos. You can't expect emotional control when your mind is constantly overstimulated. So create order. Create boundaries. Create silence. You'll be amazed how much strength returns when you stop giving your attention away. Elimination also means cutting toxic connections, people who drain, distract, or derail you. You don't have to hate them, but you can't let them hold you. You can't grow if you're surrounded by noise disguised as friendship. You can't focus if you're trapped in conversations that lead nowhere. You have to protect your mental environment the same way you protect your home, by not letting just anyone in. Because discipline isn't just what you do, it's what you allow. It's not about being cold, it's about being clear. You're not rejecting people, you're rejecting patterns that keep you small. The disciplined person knows this. Focus is expensive. It costs you comfort. It costs you distraction. It costs you constant stimulation. That's why few people ever achieve deep work, because deep work demands silence. It demands boredom. It demands elimination. You must become ruthless with your time and protective of your peace. Not everyone deserves your attention. Not every idea deserves your energy. Not every opportunity deserves your yes. You have to filter your world down to what actually matters. That's how you sharpen the blade. Every time you say no, you reclaim power. Every time you ignore the noise, you strengthen your control. Every time you choose focus over distraction, you reinforce discipline. You don't owe anyone constant access. You don't owe every notification a response. You don't owe every conversation your energy. Your attention is sacred. Your focus is limited. Guard it like your life depends on it, because it does. That's how the disciplined live. They don't chase stimulation, they create space for clarity. They don't consume constantly, they think deliberately. And that's why they move faster, stronger, and farther than the rest. Here's the truth. Noise will always exist. You can't eliminate it from the world, but you can eliminate it from your life. You can't control everything, but you can control your inputs. You can't stop the noise, but you can stop responding to it. That's the secret. That's control. When you stop feeding the noise, it stops feeding on you. When you stop reacting to distractions, they lose their power. When you stop chasing attention, you start creating momentum. That's how you rise above a noisy world, through silence, focus, and discipline. You have a choice. You can keep listening to the chaos, or you can commit to clarity. You can keep consuming, or you can start creating. You can keep reacting, or you can start directing. Elimination isn't loss, it's liberation. You're not missing out.
you're leveling up. You're not cutting things away, you're carving yourself out. Because underneath the noise is your potential. Underneath the chaos is your power. And underneath the distraction is your purpose, waiting to be heard again. So remove what weakens you. Silence what drains you. Protect what builds you. That's how you reclaim your time, your focus, and your life. Transition. You've eliminated the noise. You've created silence, space, and strength. Now comes the ultimate test: consistency. Because none of this matters if you can't hold it. Discipline isn't built in bursts, it's forged in repetition.
Chapter 10. The Power of Consistency. Everyone wants results. Few want repetition. Everyone wants success. Few want consistency. Because consistency is boring. It's quiet. It's invisible. It's the part of the process no one celebrates, but everyone depends on. That's the truth. Discipline isn't about doing something once. It's about doing it long after the mood is gone. You don't need more intensity. You need more consistency. That's the key. Consistency is the difference between potential and performance. It's the bridge between motivation and mastery. It's the one skill that turns ordinary effort into unstoppable progress. Most people quit not because they can't, but because they don't stay. They chase bursts of motivation, but never build momentum. They want results fast, but growth doesn't work that way. You have a choice. You can chase quick wins, or you can build permanent change. You can stay addicted to the rush, or you can commit to the routine. The real ones commit. They show up tired. They show up uninspired. They show up anyway. That's consistency. You see, motivation is emotion. It's fleeting. It's unpredictable. Consistency is decision. It's chosen. It's controlled. You don't wait for it. You become it. Because consistency isn't about how you feel. It's about who you are. You either decide to be disciplined, or you stay trapped in the cycle of starting over. And if you're tired of starting over, stop quitting. That's the formula. Consistency isn't sexy, but it's sacred. It's what separates those who talk from those who transform. It's what builds trust with yourself. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you build identity. You prove you're reliable. You show yourself that your word means something. And when your word means something to you, it begins to mean something to the world. That's confidence, built one repetition at a time. Because confidence doesn't come from hype. It comes from habit. You can read every quote, watch every video, listen to every speech, but until you live consistency, nothing changes. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your habits. Consistency is a test of patience. The results never come fast enough. The progress is invisible until one day it's undeniable. That's how growth works. Quietly, slowly, then suddenly. You plant the seeds, you water them daily, And one morning, you wake up to a forest. But most people never make it that far. They dig up their seeds every week to see if they're growing. Stop doing that. Stop measuring too soon. Stop expecting instant reward. Stop mistaking boredom for failure. Boredom is a sign that you're on the right track, because greatness feels repetitive long before it feels rewarding. That's why consistency is rare. When you commit to consistency, you step out of emotion and into structure. You don't ask, "Do I feel like it?" You ask, "Did I plan for it?" You don't react, you repeat. You don't chase motivation, you create motion. That's how you build unstoppable momentum. Because every small action compounds, every repetition multiplies, every ordinary day contributes to an extraordinary result. And one day, people will call you disciplined or gifted. But you'll know the truth. You were just consistent. You don't need perfection. You need persistence. You don't need intensity. You need identity. Because once consistency becomes part of who you are, it's no longer effort. It's instinct. You don't decide whether or not to show up. You just do. You move automatically because it's who you've trained yourself to be. That's mastery. When consistency becomes your natural state. And here's the irony. Once you stop chasing results and focus on consistency, the results chase you. That's the paradox of discipline. You get everything you wanted once you stop needing it instantly. Consistency builds quiet power, because when you do something long enough, it stops being impressive and starts being normal. And when excellence becomes your normal, you can't lose. You've built habits that keep winning for you even on your worst days. That's the goal, to make discipline automatic, to make success predictable, to make effort effortless. You don't rise because of one big day. You rise because of 1,000 small ones. Consistency isn't glamorous, but it's undefeated. You have a choice. You can live in cycles, or you can build systems. You can keep chasing motivation, or you can master momentum. You can keep starting over, or you can stay in motion. That's your power. Consistency. It's what turns time into leverage. It's what turns effort into excellence. And it doesn't require talent. It requires honesty. It requires patience. It requires doing what most people won't, showing up every day, whether it feels good or not. That's how you build a life that compounds in your favor. Remember this. You don't need to move fast. You just need to never stop moving. Progress is built in inches. Discipline is earned in repetition. Success is found in doing the same right thing again and again, long after it feels exciting. That's how greatness is built. Slowly, silently, steadily. You don't need to shout. You don't need to prove. You just need to keep going. Because when the rest quit, the consistent rise. When the rest, the consistent execute. When the rest talk, the consistent build. That's the power of consistency. It doesn't get weaker with time. It compounds. And when your consistency compounds, so does your life. Transition to closing. You've built the foundation. You've faced silence, mastered solitude, and learned the rhythm of discipline. But before we finish, there's one final message, the truth that holds all of this together. Let's close with it now.
You've just heard the Ruthless Discipline Formula. But hearing isn't enough. Knowing isn't enough. Thinking isn't enough. You must do. Every day, without mood, without excuse, without hesitation. Discipline is the great equalizer, the one advantage you can't buy, can't fake, can't borrow. You build it by showing up when it hurts, by acting when you're bored, by refusing to negotiate with weakness. Every small action compounds into identity. Every day of discipline stacks into freedom. So from this moment on, act like the person you said you'd become. Start today. Start tired. Start anyway. Because ruthless discipline isn't what you do, it's who you decide to be.